Hey everyone, Sergei here from ukramedia.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to talk about motion graphics templates. So we're going to learn how to create a title motion graphics template for Premiere Pro, and also how to create a lower third motion graphics template for Premiere Pro as well. And we're going to start all of that completely from scratch, and without any further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, so we are in After Effects and we're going to start from the very beginning. So let's create a new composition by clicking on this icon in here. And we're going to label it 01 underscore title because we're going to be creating a title. So then make sure preset is set to HDTV 1080 29.97 frame rate and duration is set to 6 seconds, and then press OK. We're going to move it into a new folder and we're going to call it 01 underscore comps. All right, so next we're going to bring in our images. I'm going to double click on this project panel, and in here, navigate over to the rasters folder, and we're going to select both of these images. I'm using Adobe stock images, but you can use any images that you would like, and make sure nothing is checked here. Press import. Now we have it in our project panel. Let's move it into a new folder. We're going to call it 02 underscore, and it's going to be assets. All right, so now we have the structure that we need to stay organized. Next, let's go into title composition by double clicking on it right here. And inside here, we're going to create a new text layer in our composition. So before we do that, let's go over to the character panel here. Make sure your font is set to Acumen Pro Condensed and the weight of it is set to black. And then make sure the color of it is this value right here. And then tracking, make sure that's set to 20 and all caps is on. And then paragraph in the paragraph panel, make sure it's set to center text. All right, so once you've made all these changes, next, let's double click on this type tool to create our text in the center of our composition here. And we're going to type something like main title goes here. So it's going to be our placeholder here. And next, I'm going to select this, press enter to rename it to title 1. And then I'm going to go back to this right here, select it in our composition panel here, and press Control-Alt-Home to center the anchor point to here. So I'm going to press Control-Alt-Home. And then it's going to center to our text. And then I want to center this text to the center of our composition by pressing Control Home. So now we have our text title 1 set up. Next, I want to bring in a shape layer that's going to be the size of our text. And to do that, make sure nothing is selected. So deselect everything. And then we're going to go over to this rectangle tool, click on it. Make sure fill is set to solid and make sure stroke is set to none. All right, so we're going to change the color of our fill to this value right here. So just type this in, press OK. And then after you've made all these changes, we're going to double click on this rectangle tool to create a new shape layer that's the same size as our composition right here. So there it is, as you can see it. And we're going to move it right underneath our title 1 text. I'm going to select this, press enter, and let's rename it to text, and it's going to be shape. Okay, so we're going to adjust the size of it. Obviously it's a bit too big, so we can go down all the way to the size property. You can do it that way, or you can just select it, press Control F and go into timeline search bar in here, and we can type size, and then it'll only show us size here. So in here, we're going to change the X value to something like 1500, and then the Y value to 200. All right. Also, I'm going to select this, press T to reveal the opacity property. We're going to take it down to 75. We're going to make it a bit transparent. So that's good. So we do have our title 1 and then the shape here. So next I'm going to create the subtitle. So I'm going to select this title 1, press Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to place it right underneath our title 1 here. And then I'm going to move it right here in our composition panel. So we're going to move it down about here for right now. And while we have it selected, let's change this text. So let's double click here. We're going to say something like subtitle goes here. All right, so we have our subtitle, and then I'm going to select this and go into character panel. We're going to make some adjustments in here. So for the weight, instead of black, we're going to change it to semi-bold, and then the size of it is going to shrink down to 100 pixels, and everything else is going to be okay. The color, so that's good. Make sure you have it selected. Press Control-Alt-Home to center the anchor point, and then we're going to go over here and select it. Press P to reveal the position property of it, and we're going to move it some. So we're going to move it to about, let's do something like 720. So like this, that's good. Next, I'm going to bring up my proportional grid here by pressing Alt double quote like this. And then I'm going to select all of my layers here. And then we're going to kind of position it in the center of our composition like this. It doesn't need to be perfect, but that's good enough for me. So I'm going to get rid of this proportional grid by pressing Alt double quote again. And then I'm going to create a new null layer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to new, and instead of null object, I'm going to use shape layer. I love using shape layer. It's much better in my opinion. I'm going to click on it, and now we have a new shape layer. And the way it works, I mean, it is a shape layer, but as you can see, it doesn't have any contents. So it's like a shell. It's empty, and the only thing we have is this point right here. So it's perfect for a control layer. So I'm going to select this, press enter to rename it to control. And next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all these other layers, and we're going to parent to this control layer like this. So now if I select this control, and if I move it, you can see everything else will move with it as well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is create a background image for this text in here. So we're going to select our 01 comps folder to create a subfolder. And in here, we're going to call it pre-comps. And make sure you have it selected. Let's create a new composition into that folder. We're going to call it background image. And make sure everything else stays the same. Press OK. So now we have a new composition, and in here we're going to move this new image right here right into it like this, and we're going to make some adjustments. So we're going to go to Effect Controls panel, right click, and we're going to go all the way down to color correction, and we're going to click on this right here, Lumetri color. So in here under Creative tab right here, we're going to go all the way to Faded Film, and we're going to take it up to about 65. And then right now it looks too red for me, and it will kind of not work with this red, so it will be too much red. So we need to introduce some blue. So I'm going to push this to blue right about here maybe. That's probably good. So before and after, it's exactly what I need, but we're going to add on to this. So we're going to go back to our project panel, and we're going to select this paper texture image. We're going to put it right above our image here, and I'm going to select this, press Control, Alt, Shift, and then H. And basically what it does, it will fit our image to the width of our composition. And make sure right here under mode, we're going to set this to multiply. So what it does, it kind of adds a nice little texture in here, which is good. And we're not done yet. Make sure you have everything deselected. Double click on this rectangle tool to create a new shape layer. As you can see, we have a new shape layer. It's the same size as our composition. Select it, press enter, and let's rename it to vignette. And it's going to be an adjustment layer. So to convert this layer into an adjustment layer, we just need to click on this thing right here. So now it plays the role of an adjustment layer. And what that means is this. Everything underneath this layer will be affected by this layer. So whatever effect I apply to this layer, it will be affected to all of them. So I'm going to select this layer. I'm going to go to Effect Controls panel, right click, and then we're going to go to Stylize, and we're going to click on this CC Vignette. And now we have a new vignette. You can see before, after. So that's all I'm going to do here. In fact, let's animate it. So I'm going to select this image, and I'm going to click on P to reveal the position, and then hold down Shift and press S to reveal scale. So we're going to animate the scale and also position on the Y here. So make sure the time indicator is at the very beginning of your composition, and we're going to set some keyframes. So for the scale, we're going to set it to something like 60%. And then for the position on the Y here, we're going to set it to 320. So that's going to be the starting point. And then we're going to take this time indicator to the very end, and we're going to set the scale to 70%. So it's going to scale up kind of like this. And then make sure we go to the very end here. And for the position, we're going to take it to 420. So it's going to have kind of like a zoom, and then it's going to go up. So that's going to be something like this. Very nice. Now we're going to go back to our title right here, and we're going to go to the project panel, and we're going to select this background image, and we're going to drag it and put it at the very end here. So now we have our title, our subtitle, and our background image. All right, so the next step is to rig up our shape layer, this thing right here, to where it always stays the same size as our text. And by size, I mean the width. So if we type something else, for example, something like, let's do 1, 2, 3, right? Obviously, our shape is kind of fixed. So I want to have the ability to where it will always stay the same size as our text. So if it changes, I want for the shape to change as well. So we need to use expressions to do that. And by expressions, I mean we need to do some coding. There's really not another way of doing this outside of doing some coding. And I know every time I mention coding, people kind of freak out, but it's okay. We're gonna do some basic stuff. It's not gonna be too hard. So let's do this. I'm gonna guide you step by step. So we're gonna go into this text shape, and we're gonna press Control F to go to timeline search bar. We're gonna search for size property. So here's our size property, and we're gonna rig this up. But the first thing we need to do, we need to split this X and the Y into separate sliders, because right now both of them live on the same property. So we need to split them. And to do that, we're gonna do some coding, but it's not gonna be too crazy. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna select this shape layer. We're gonna go to Effects Control Panel, and we're gonna create some menus in here. So I'm gonna right click, we're gonna go to Expression Controls, and right here we're gonna click on Slider Control. If you don't know what that is, it's just an effect, and all it does, it just gives us this slider. Think of it like a menu item. It does nothing by itself until we attach it to something. So we have just one slider, and it's gonna be our first value right here. So it's gonna be 1500, right? 1500 for right now. And then it's gonna be X size. So let's label this, press enter, let's label it X size. All right, so we have the first one. Obviously it doesn't do anything, but we'll link it up. And let's create a second one for this one. So I'm gonna select this, press Control D and duplicate it. Press enter to rename it. We're gonna say Y size. So it's gonna be Y size, right? Up and down, that's Y axis. And we're gonna change it to 200. So we're gonna say 200. All right, so let's link them up. So these to that. So I don't wanna be changing it in here. I wanna change the size from here. So we're going to do some expressions. So here we go. We're going to alt click on the stopwatch here to create an expression for the size property. As you can see, it's lit up in red, which means that this code right here is driving this property. And notice this value right here has 2 dimensions. And what it means is that it's an array of 2 values. So our code here has to be the same as the value here. So the end has to have 2 values as well. So I'm going to open up the square bracket and close it. And within here, I'm just going to type 2 random numbers. I'm going to say 33, 44. So right now, our expression has 2 values, right? So we have 2 values. So this matches that. So 33 is actually going to go into the first value, and 44 is going to go into the second value. So if I click away, you can see that it applied 33, 33, 44, 44. So I just want to show you that this code is the same as that. We just typed it in, right? So, but the reason I wanted to show you that the first value we type goes into here and the second one goes into that, because now I can just select the first value and then pick whip to this slider right here. So now the first value is going to be that slider. So when I click away, you can see it changed to 1500. That's good. So next, I'm going to select the second value, and I'm going to pick whip to that. So now the second value is going to be 200. So that's going to be 200. So watch this. All right, it was that simple. That's all we have to do. And if I pull on this, you can see we can adjust it from here. And if I'm going to press Control Z and undo it, you can see that now we have more control because we can have each single value on each slider. So now I can just play with the X without moving the Y. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to select this shape again, press E to reveal these in here. So we have X and Y. I don't need the Y, so I'm going to press Control Alt Shift and then click on this Y size, and it disappears. Nice. So then in here, I'm going to alt click on the stopwatch here for the size. We're going to create code in here, some expressions. And basically what I want to do, I want to type in here the width of our text. And to do that, I'm just going to use this expressions pick whip. It's going to help us to write code. So I'm going to click and drag and point to title 1. And when I do that, it creates code like a path to that title 1. So it says, all right, you got that layer title 1. What do you want with it? But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say period. And then I'm going to type, make sure you can see it, source rect at times. So you can see it's going to autofill for me. I'm going to press enter. So this method right here will help us to get the width of this title 1 text. So I'm going to go to the end of it and I'm going to press period and I'm going to say width like that. That's all we need to do. So when I click away, you can see that now it gave me the width of my text. And the reason why I know that, because my shape now is the same width as this text. So that's good. So the next thing obviously to do here would be to add some kind of margin here, because I don't want to be touching the text. Now you can just go over here and say plus and then maybe 100 pixels or something like that. and then it will add 50 and 50, you know, altogether 100. So that can be a margin, and you can kind of change the text. You can see everything's adjusting, so it's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So let me undo this. Now, I don't want it to have it like this. I'm going to attach this value to a slider. So I'm going to select this text shape again, and I'm going to duplicate one of these sliders. So I'm going to select this, press Control D and duplicate it. I'm going to select it again, press Enter to rename it. We're going to call it margin. Okay. And this margin, let's set it to something like 150. All right. So instead of 100, I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to replace it for this value. And I'm just going to pick whip to it like this. Now, usually I type this, I put period value just to be safe that I want the value of this, but you don't have to do that. But usually I'm pretty strict on that. So I'm going to click away, and now our margin is going to be this. So we can adjust our margin in here. I'm going to set it to 0, and it's going to be touching, right? But if I wanted to have some gap in here, I would just pull on it. So let's set it at 150, and that's good to go. So now we have successfully rigged up our text in here. So if I type anything in here, you can see it's going to automatically adjust. All right, it is time for us to animate the text. And we're gonna start with this title 1. We're gonna select this, go into it, and we're gonna click on this animate. So in here we have some options. We can animate like the position, the scale, the skew, the rotation, opacity, all of these interesting things. However, these are not the same as like the position and rotation and scale property that you see for the layer. It's something else. It only has to do with the text. So we're going to go over here and we're going to select position because we want to animate position. And as you can see, we have animator 1, it creates it, and then we have position. And this position property is like the starting position. So if we set this value on the Y to about, let's say 150, you can see that's going to be our starting point. And then if we go into this range selector, we have some options. So start right here, we can start at 0. And that will give us the initial position, right? But if we take it to 100, it will animate everything to 100 where we were before. So we can create some interesting animations with these, but we're going to be adjusting actually the offset. But before we do that, let's go adjust some settings within this advanced tab. So in here, we're going to do the following. So right now, our animation is based on character. You can see it's one at a time, but I don't want that. I want it to be one word at a time. So we're going to say based on, instead of characters, we're going to say words. So now each word is going to animate in separately. That's good. Now the other problem is this. So right now this one animates, then when it locks in, then the other one goes in and so on. I want for it to have slight offset. Like I don't want for it to wait till this one arrives for it to start. I want it to kind of have slight offset. So to do that, we're going to do this. We're going to go all the way over here to shape. And instead of square, we're going to set it to ramp up. And now if I kind of pull on this, you can see it's much different. So we're going to adjust some offset by adjusting the ease high and ease low. So for ease high, we're going to set it to something like 50%. And then ease low, we're going to set it to 80. So now if I adjust this, you can see it gives us something interesting, much better. All right, so we're done with all of these settings in here. I'm going to select offset, hit S twice to solo it. So now we see this offset by itself. And then we're going to take our time indicator, take it all the way to the beginning of our timeline, press Shift page down once to go 10 frames forward. And we're going to set our first keyframe here. So we're going to set a keyframe and take the value down to 100. And then from here, we're going to press Shift page down 3 times, 1, 2, 3, to go down 30 frames. And then here we're going to set another keyframe by changing this value to 100. So when you change the value, it will automatically create a keyframe. So now we have something really interesting. You can see it animates in. That's good. And next what I want to do, I want to select these keys. I'm going to copy them by pressing Control C, and I'm going to paste them in here. Now obviously I want to reverse these keyframes because I want to animate in and then animate out. So I need to reverse these. So right click on one of them and go to Keyframe Assistant and say time reverse keyframes. And what that does, it flips them. So now we animate in and then we animate out. Now let's position these keyframes at the end here, but I want to have a 10 frame gap at the end here. So I'm going to take my time indicator all the way to the end, and then I'm going to press Shift page up once to go 10 frames backwards. And then I'm going to select these keys like this and just move them all the way over here. So we have a 10 frame gap here and also a 10 frame gap at the beginning as well. So let's preview this real quick. You can see it animates in and then it stays there and then it will animate out. All right. So here's what I want to do. Obviously, it's kind of awkward because the beginning position of this text is still visible, and I want to hide this. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go and take my time indicator over here, and I'm going to select the rectangle tool in here, and I'm going to start drawing a mask. So make sure you select title 1, and then I'm going to start drawing from here and just move all the way to where the bottom portion of my mask sits right underneath my text. So somewhere about here, something like that is probably good, like this. Once you've done that, let's preview our animation. You can see now our text hides behind it. So it starts from nothing and then it slides in, which is exactly what I want. And then in here, it goes back to under the mask. So we have our first text animated. It's looking great. So now what I want to do, I want to select this animator 1 and copy it, Control C. And we're going to take this and paste it to our text title 2. So I'm going to go to about here. I'm going to go to this keyframe here, select this title 2 and press Control V to paste it. So now we're going to have identical animator 1, right, to both of them. So if I preview this, you can see they're both doing the same stuff. I'm going to select this title 1, press U to hide everything, and press U again to reveal only keyframes. And then I'm going to select title 2 and press U as well to reveal all the keyframes. We're going to adjust these keyframes. So I'm going to take my time indicator to the beginning of this animation, and then I'm going to offset these 10 frames. So I'm going to select these and then press Shift page down once, like this, and then I'm going to move them right about here. So now if I preview this, you can see first we see that and then this one. That's good. Now for these two, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to the beginning of this animation, and then I'm going to go backwards 10 frames. So I'm going to hold down Shift and then page up to go backwards 10 frames. So I'm going to select these and then offset them like this. So we're going to have first the title animates in, and then the subtitle, and then the subtitle will animate out first, and then the title. Now we're going to do some more adjustments to the subtitle. I'm going to hide this and then go back into it, and then we're going to go to animator 1. We're going to adjust the position. So instead of sliding in from the bottom like it does right now, right here, we're going to change the Y value to 0, and then the X, we're going to set that to 150. So now it's going to slide from this side to the left, like this. So that's good. Now, something else I want to do, I want to bring in another property. So we're going to go to this animator 1 of this title 2, right? And we're going to say add, and property, we're going to say opacity. So now we can set the opacity, the initial opacity of this text layer, to 0. And it's going to animate from nothing and slide in like this. So let me preview this real quick. You can see it slides in and then it will slide out. So it's perfect. So that's all we need to do for the text. I'm going to actually deselect everything, press U to hide everything, and then press U again to only see keyframes. So let's preview this again. So as you can see, everything animates. So as you can see, we are done with animating the text. Okay, so next, let's animate our shape in here. And to do that, we're going to select the shape, press S to reveal the scale property of it. And here's what we're going to be animating. We're going to be animating the X size of it. So I'm going to uncheck this constraint, and we're going to be animating this right here. It's going to be very easy. So we're going to go to the very beginning of this timeline, press page down by itself 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to go forward 5 frames. And then we're going to set a keyframe there. And this keyframe is going to have 0 for the X size. So nothing there. And then we're going to make sure our time indicator is right here. We're going to press Shift page down 3 times, 1, 2, 3, to go forward 30 frames. And then we're going to take this X value to 100. So essentially we end up with this. Now notice our animation is very boring. It's very linear for this shape. So we're going to add some excitement. We're going to add some easing. We're going to slowly start up and then slowly arrive here. And to do that, we're going to add some easing. So we're going to adjust the easing for this keyframe. You can either right click and go to keyframe velocity, or you can just select this and press Control Shift K. It's the same thing. It's going to take you to the same place. And we're going to be adjusting the outgoing velocity. So we have a keyframe. We're going to be adjusting this easing right here. So the way I remember it, just imagine there's a keyframe right here, and you want to adjust this side. So you're going to be adjusting this area. And we're going to be adjusting the X size. So we're going to be doing the X value. And for dimensions here, we're going to set it to 0. And influence, we're going to say, let's do 50% easing. So it's going to have a 50% easing here, and press OK. So now it's going to slowly kind of start animating. So like this, it's much better, but it's going to look a lot better when we adjust this one. So the same thing, you can either right click and go to keyframe velocity, or select this, Control-Shift-K. I'm a big fan of shortcuts, so that's what I like to do. Now we're going to be adjusting the easing on this side. So we want to slowly arrive here. And just remember, imagine there's a keyframe here. We're going to be adjusting this side. So it's going to be incoming velocity. And we're going to be adjusting the X size, right? So it's going to be X right here. And make sure you set this to 0. And then influence, we're going to set this right here to 80. So it's going to be smooth big time. All right. Once you're done, press OK. And so now if I preview this, watch this. It's much better. It's a lot snappier. That's good. All right. So then I'm going to select these keys, Control-C and copy them. Go over here and Control-V and paste. And then we have a 5-frame gap in here. So I'm going to take my time indicator to the very end here. Press page up 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to have a 5-frame gap in here. And I'm going to snap this one to that time indicator. So now we have a 5-frame gap in here and then 5-frame gap in here. So it's going to animate in like this. And obviously we need to reverse these keys. So I'm going to make sure you select them. Right click and go to Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse Keyframes, and then that will flip them, right? So now it's going to animate out. So we have that shape animating in, and then it's going to animate out like this. So that's how easy it is to animate this shape layer. All right, so the next thing we're going to animate would be this background image. Obviously, we already have animation in it, but we're going to animate the entire layer. So we're going to play with the scale property, but actually we're going to reuse the same keyframed animation we have already created for this text shape layer. So we're going to select this text and we're going to press S on a keyboard to reveal the scale property. And I'm going to click on this scale property to select all of my keys and press Control-C to copy it. And now I'm going to select this background image, press S key to reveal the scale property. And I'm going to take my time indicator to the very beginning here and then select the scale property and then press Control-V to paste these keys in here. As you can see, we have them in here. Now I'm going to adjust these last two. I'm going to push them to the very end. All right, so now our background image has the same kind of animation. So it animates in like this, which is good. But we're going to draw some masks on this background image. So we can either do it like this, draw it, but we're not going to do that. We're actually going to undo this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to select this footage right here, this background image, and then we're going to double click on this rectangle tool to create a mask that's going to be the same size as our footage, which is exactly what I need here. So then I'm going to press Alt double quote to reveal the proportional grid, like this one right here. And if you don't see it in here, you can just go to here and then click on proportional grid. That should work. All right, so after that, we're going to double click on our mask in here. Just double click on it. It doesn't help that it's green, so you can change the color of it to something more bright like yellow. That's good. So double click on it, and now we have these handles. We can move on it. So if you just click and move on one, you can move one side. But if you press down Control, you can move both of them. So then we can position it right about here. That's good. If I preview this, you can see it animates it, which is exactly what I want here. So then I'm going to select this, press Control-D and duplicate it. So now we have a duplicate. I'm going to select the one on the bottom, and then I'm going to adjust the mask. I'm going to double click on it, and then I'm going to click and drag. Again, make sure you hold down Control to grab both sides. We're going to slightly size it up like this. So right about here to this line. And then we're also going to offset these keyframes. So we're going to go to the very beginning and then press page down 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to go 5 frames forward. And we're going to offset these keys by 5 frames like this. By the way, when you move this, if you hold down Shift, it will snap to your time indicator. All right, the same thing here. We're going to offset it by 5 frames. So we're going to take our time indicator to the very end, press down page up 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, select your keys and then move them and hold down Shift to snap it. And so now we have something really interesting. So we have the first one, the second one. You can see it. It gives us a very interesting look here. All right, so let's do it one more time. We're going to select this background image, press Control-D to duplicate it. We're going to select the bottom one, but this time I want it to be full screen, so I don't need this mask. So I'm going to select this mask, press Delete to get rid of it. And next we're going to offset these keyframes right here. So I'm going to take my time indicator to the beginning of this key here. We're going to offset it by 5 frames. So another 5 frames, press page down 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Select these keys and move them. Hold down Shift to snap it. And then we're going to go over to this key right here. By the way, if you hold down Shift, it will snap to the key. So take it right there. And we're going to offset these 5 frames. So press page up 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Select these keys and then move them, hold down shift to snap. So that's good. And now if I preview this, watch this. You can see it definitely gives us something very unique. Now let's get rid of this proportional grid. You can either press Alt double quote on your keyboard, or you can just go over here and click on this proportional grid. Next, let's create a lower third. All right, so let's create a lower third from this composition. So we're going to select this title composition and press Ctrl D and duplicate it. We're going to select it, press Enter. Let's rename it to 02 underscore lower third. We're going to go into it. We're going to get rid of these background images. We no longer need them. So hit delete. And we're going to adjust title 1. Select this, go to character panel. Let's take the font size from 150 to 100 pixels. And then we're going to select title 2. Go back to character panel, and in here we're going to take it down to 50 pixels, and then we're going to select both of them, press Ctrl Alt Home to center the anchor points, and press P to reveal the position property of all of them in this timeline. And then we're going to adjust the title 1 position. So for the X we're going to set it to 0. For the Y we're going to take it up to about -80. Okay, and for title 2 we're going to set the X to 0. And then the Y about, let's do -15. All right, so it's starting to look like a lower third, but we will adjust this shape right here. We're going to select this, go into Effects Control Panel, and in here we're going to change the Y size from 200 to 150. All right, so now it's definitely looking like a lower third, but we do want to add some kind of a secondary animation. So we're going to create some kind of stroke secondary animation. And to do that, we're going to select this text shape layer, press Ctrl D to duplicate it. I'm going to select this again, press Enter, and let's rename it to stroke. I'm going to select this, press S to reveal the scale property. Click on the scale property to select all of the keys. Make sure your time indicator is in between these 2 keyframes, and then hit delete. And again, make sure your scale property is set to 100 on both X and Y. So now we have just a static shape. So we're going to select this shape. We're going to go to fill, click on it, and we're going to set it to none. So we're not going to have any fill. We're going to click on stroke, and then we're going to set it to solid. We're going to have some stroke, and make sure that the color of it is set to this value. And then make sure that the width size is set to 6 pixels. All right, so now we have a static stroke. So we're going to apply some kind of an animation to it. And to do that, we're going to use shape layer actions. So we're going to go deep into the stroke like this. And just like text layers, we can animate text layers with all these actions. Well, in the same way, we have this add button. We can click over here. We have all these different options. So we're going to go with this trim paths. So when you click on it, it creates it right underneath our rectangle. And we can go deep into it. As you can see right here, we have end property. We can animate our paths. So it does exactly what it says. So we're going to set the first value to 0. We're going to take our time indicator to the very beginning. We're going to set a keyframe. And then we're going to go up 30 frames by pressing Shift page down 3 times, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to take this value to 100. So it's going to go from 0 to 100. So as you can see, our stroke animates like this. That's good, but we will adjust some easing. So for this one, we're going to select this, press Ctrl Shift K to go to the keyframe velocity. And we're going to add some 50% easing to this side. So remember, keyframe is going to be on this side. We're going to be adjusting the outgoing velocity. So we're going to set this to 0. And then influence, we're going to set this to 50%. So now it's going to have some easing here. We're going to add some easing for this key as well. We're going to select this, press Ctrl Shift K. And then we're going to adjust easing to the left of it. So we're going to be adjusting the incoming velocity. So we're going to set this value to 0 and that one to 80. And that's good. Press OK. So let's see what that looks like. Much better. So we're going to select these keys, press Ctrl C to copy them. And let's go to the very end here, press Ctrl V and paste them. Right click to reverse, right? Time reverse keyframes. And then we're going to snap it to the very end. So it's going to animate in, and then it's going to animate out. Okay, so now we're going to click on this end property, make sure all the keys are selected, and then I'm going to press Ctrl C and copy it. And then I'm going to select start. Make sure your time indicator is at the very beginning here. So click on the start property and press Ctrl V to paste. So we have the same keys in here. So we're going to offset these 10 frames. So make sure time indicator is at the very beginning here. Press Shift page down once, and then select these keys. and then move them. As you move, hold shift to snap. So now we have created something interesting. So it animates in and then it animates out at the same time. So it creates an interesting animation. And so as you can see, we have it right here, but we're also going to adjust it in here as well. So we're going to select both of these and put our time indicator right here. We're going to go 10 frames backwards here by pressing shift page up once like this. And then we're going to select these selected keyframes and shift snap to the time indicator. So now if I preview this, you can see it animates in, and then at the end here, it's going to animate out, but it creates a nice secondary animation and it definitely sells it much better. All right, so now we have our finished animation here. If I preview this, you can see it's looking great. It looks like a lower third. It's very dynamic. We can change the text. I can adjust here. I can say, let's do something like first, last name. We can say title goes here. So if I preview this, it definitely looks like a lower third. So now we need to position it in a title safe area. So we can click over here and just select this title action safe. And then we're going to select this control, press P to reveal the position property. We're going to move it down to about right here. And then we're going to move it to, I don't know, like right about here. Now, the only problem that we have right now, if you change the name, you can see it's sizing it from the center. And that I do not want. I want it to size from this left corner. So to do that, we're going to do some expressions. So we're going to split this position property, click on it, and then separate dimensions. So we're going to split both of them into separate sliders. So now we have slider for X and slider for Y. So we're going to be adjusting the X. I'm going to set it to 0, actually. So 0. You can see it's at the like a half of the shape, right? So what I want to do, I want to take the half of the shape and push this lower third. And to do that, I'm going to select this text shape, press E to reveal all the properties, and we're going to be linking to this X size. So from this X position, I'm going to alt click on the stopwatch, and I'm going to pick whip to this X size, and then I'm going to say divide by 2. So watch what happens. So it adds half of the shape to my position. It kind of shifts it. So now this edge will be locked into this. So if I change it to something like 1, 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. You can see that the edge will always stay here. All right, we're almost there. However, I don't want it to be that close to the edge. So here's what I need to do. I'm going to say right here, right before this statement right here that we just created, I'm going to say value plus, and then half of this shape. So value is just a keyword that refers to this value, our current value. And our current value, if you click on it, it's set to 0. That's why, you know, there's not much of a gap here. But if you move on it, then it creates something interesting. So I can say, let's do 150. And then if I change the text, let's do first, last name. And as you can see, it will always be locked in to this side. All right, so now that we have both title and lower third created, the next step would be to take them and export them into motion graphic templates so that we can use them in Premiere Pro without ever opening After Effects, which is very useful. And to set it up is very easy. So let me show you how to do this. We're going to start with the title first. So we're going to double click to go into it. And in the composition here, we're going to right click and click on this Open in Essential Graphics. You'll see this Essential Graphics panel pop up here. And this panel helps us to create a motion graphic template. So the first thing you want to do is rename it. So right here, we're going to name it to, let's do something like 01_ title. All right. So that's going to be the name of our motion graphic template. And then we want to create a thumbnail for it, right? Set poster. So the way it works, you take this time indicator. So if you want to see this image in here, you just click on set poster and it's going to grab this and put it into that based on your time indicator. So if you want to grab this image, just make sure you move your time indicator to here and click on set poster. And there you have it. It's that easy. So the next thing you want to do is drag in properties from here into this panel right here, into this Essential Graphics panel. And whatever you drag in here from here is what we're going to be able to edit in Premiere. So in this case, I want to grab the source text property of title 1 and title 2. So to do that, I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to go over here and search for source text. And as you can see, we do see the source text property of both title 1 and title 2. So now I'm going to select the source text property of title 1 and click and drag and move it into this Essential Graphics panel. As you can see, created a property for it. So we're going to change the name of it to title 1. So now we have title 1. So then we're going to click on the source text property of title 2, bring it in, and we're going to rename it to title 2. That's all we need to change in Premiere. So I am ready to export this into a motion graphics template. And to do that, it's quite easy. All you got to do, just click on this export motion graphics template. So click on that, save it, and then it's going to show you this window right here. And here, I'm going to save it to local drive, and I'm going to browse to this Mogrts folder. In fact, I already have it right here. So title, I'm going to save. Yes, I do want to replace it. And by the way, you can also set keywords. If you have a lot of different motion graphic templates, you can type keywords like title, comma, animation, and so on. I mean, you can add all kinds of them, but I'm not going to do that. So if you want to do that, go for it. So after all of this, you want to press OK, and it's going to create a motion graphic template for title. Now, the same thing for the lower third. Just go into it and then right click here, go to Open in Essential Graphics, and make sure you create a poster for it. So something like this. Set a poster. There you have it. We're going to rename this to 02 underscore. We're going to say lower third. Okay. And next I'm going to search for source text. I'm going to say source text, and we have source text for title 1. I'm going to move that in, and instead of title 1, I'm going to say name. And then I'm going to move in this title 2, bring that in, and then I'm going to change the name of it to title. So it's our lower third, so we can change the name right here and then the title. So let's export this motion graphic template by clicking on this Export Motion Graphics Template button. And then we're going to do the same process again. Click Save, and then we'll see this pop-up window come up. Make sure you navigate over to the folder where you want to save your motion graphic templates. In this case, it's going to be this right here. I'm going to hit Save. Yes, I do want to replace it. And then I'm going to press OK. And when you do that, it's going to create a new motion graphic template. All right, so let me show you how easy it is to install motion graphic templates in Premiere Pro. So we are in Premiere Pro, and make sure you go over to this graphics layout. So once you click on it, you'll see this Essential Graphics panel in here. And you can install your motion graphic templates by either clicking on this icon in here, or you can do it straight from the window in here. So just select your motion graphic templates wherever you exported them to, and then you click and drag and move them in here like so. And it takes a second or two, and there you have it. We have the first one, the second one. That's how easy it is. So next, what you want to do, just select one of them. I'm going to select this title, and then you can click and drag and drop them into your timeline right here in your Premiere Pro. You can preview this by just dragging it or just pressing play. And as you can see, it's that easy. You can select this, go over here to the Essential Graphics, and instead of browse, go to edit. We can adjust the title 1. We can say something like 1, 2, 3. And when you click away, it will adjust. You can type anything you want here. The same thing here as well. So that's how easy it is to adjust things. And then we can also bring in our lower third. So we can go back to browse, select this lower third, click and drag and drop it like this. And you can see there it is. It's working like a charm. You can preview it. And then you can click on it and go to Edit tab, and in here we can say something like Sergei Praknevsky, and then you can say for title, as you can see, it updated it, it resizes it, and then we can say something like ukramedia.com. When you click away, it updates it. You can preview this. It's working like a charm. So yeah, it's that easy. And this is the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe to this YouTube channel. But until next time, my name is Sergei Praknevsky, and this is ukramedia.com.